5 seconds to go. Start. But I just wish to seek one clarification. In the pursuit of India's national interest and for more benevolent use of such technologies, scientific research must have been taking place on such technologies. And Honorable Minister is aware that short of R&D is critical for the country. So I ask the Honorable Minister to simply clarify what the government has done to ensure that such critical research on such technologies is not impeded even unintentionally due to this legislation. So, sir, these are some of the issues I thought that I should flag and share with the Honorable Minister. I request him to look into them and see how best we can strengthen this legislation from all corners to protect not only this country but also its exclusive economic zone and beyond. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairperson, sir, I do not think that anybody has a quibble with this bill. As the Honorable Minister Shankar explained, that it is essentially to make us legally compliant with the mandates of the United Nations Security Council and the recommendations of the Financial Action Task Force. Behind the original bill, which this bill seeks to amend, lies an incredible story of multi partisanship that we as a country need to celebrate. It is a story of how we first of all created, then nurtured, and sustained our strategic autonomy without giving up our principled position towards a world where there is verifiable, universal, and comprehensive nuclear disarmament. This is a story which started at the inception of the Indian nation itself in 1948, where the Atomic Energy Commission was established. In 1954, we had the Atomic Energy Establishment in Trombe, which is now called the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, which was brought into existence in 1962. This House legislated the Atomic Energy Act, and after the 1962 Sino-India conflict took place and the 1964 nuclear test was carried out by China at Lop Nur on the 16th October 1964. We commenced our nuclear weapons program that culminated in the first peaceful nuclear explosion in 1974 under the leadership of the then Prime Minister Srimati Indira Gandhi, and then in 1998 when Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister, we decided to make the de jure de facto by carrying out two nuclear tests on the 11th May and 13th May 1998. Why I say de facto de jure is because some people would recall the history of Operation Brass Tacks in 1986 and the Robert Gates mission in 1990, which essentially sent out a very clear signal that not only did we have the capacity in the early 90s, but unfortunately so did our western neighbor across the border. But the incredible thing, Mr. Chairperson, is that all throughout this long journey, unlike Pakistan, which opened a nuclear Walmart, it had a rogue scientist called A.Q. Khan, who was not only accused but finally even held prima facie guilty by Pakistan itself for proliferating nuclear and missile technology. India has been able to maintain an impeccable track record insofar as non proliferation is concerned. I think that was the reason why in 2008 when India negotiated the Indo-US nuclear agreement under the leadership of then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, and the minister was, I think, the then Joint Secretary Americas, and had played a very important role in bringing that agreement to fruition. Not only were we the first non nuclear weapon state, in order to be able to conceptualize an agreement which effectively smashed the entire architecture of nuclear apartheid which was created when the first peaceful nuclear explosion was carried out with the formation of the London Suppliers Group, but we were able to also get a clean waiver from the Nuclear Suppliers Group with regard to that Indo US nuclear agreement. And that brings me to a couple of questions which I have for the Honorable Minister, which of course may go beyond the amplitude of this bill. My first question is that, unfortunately, after the 2008 Indo US nuclear agreement and the clean waiver that we got from the nuclear suppliers group, we do not seem to have made much progress with regard to getting membership of that particular organization. My colleague, Honorable Member Supriya Suleji, had alluded to some of the obstacles that are there in certain countries which are opposing India's membership of the NSG. I would want the Honorable Minister to really try and bring this House up to speed as to whether there has been any progress between 2018, when the summit was held in Kazakhstan, if I remember correctly from the top of my head, and 2022 in our efforts to get membership of the nuclear suppliers group. My second point, which was alluded to by some members of this House, is this: we have had this impeccable track record of nuclear non proliferation. Coupled with that, we have maintained a very high degree of exactitude insofar as our delivery systems are concerned. Given that the recent inadvertent launch of the BrahMos missile, which landed in Mia Chanu in Pakistan, which, if you go by reports in the public domain, could have not only endangered civilian aircraft which were in the vicinity of the trajectory of this missile, but also may have invited a retaliatory launch, given that unlike us, our western neighbor actually has a first use posture. Could the minister actually throw light as to what steps the government has taken after this inadvertent incident to ensure that something of this sort does not get repeated in future? My penultimate question is with regard to something strange that I discovered while I was researching for this bill. In the year 2018, in the Bodh Gaya blast case, the Weapons of Mass Destruction Act was invoked by the National Investigation Agency. In fact, they invoked sections 14, 17, and 19 of the Act. The public reports which are there, or whatever is there in the public domain, is completely ambiguous about really what happened after these sections were invoked. Could the minister enlighten us whether charge sheets were filed in terms of these relevant sections of the WMD Act? As I understand it, the Weapons of Mass Destruction Act is essentially to ensure that there is no proliferation of chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear weapons. Since this was the first time that our National Investigation Agency had actually invoked provisions of this Act, could the Minister enlighten the House as to what has been the progress of those investigations? My last point would relate to our no first use posture. On the 17th of August 1999, after our nuclear test, India had put a draft nuclear doctrine in place, which was then formalized on the 4th of January 2003 by the Cabinet Committee on Security Affairs. Since then, we have had a posture of recessed deterrence and no first use. In the year 2014, just before the elections, in the manifesto which was brought out by the Bharatiya Janata Party, if I recall correctly, at page 39 in subparagraph, there was a certain amount of ambiguity with regard to this no first use posture. Stop.